Hello and welcome to the channel. This is our official first YouTube video for this channel. Welcome to Draft with Maki. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to draft a 3-part corset with a Basque waistline. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So first, here is the pattern paper I'm working with, and I'm going to start first by marking out my measurements. So I'm going to mark my shoulder to bust, which is 9, shoulder to under bust, which is 12, shoulder to waistline, which is 17, and I'll go down and measure about 4 to 5 inches for the basque length. So after I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead and place my tape. Go ahead to mark my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline, and also mark my basque length. So now I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to connect, drawing out a straight line for my bust, under bust, waistline, and my basque length. So after I'm done extending all my lines, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and I will label my pattern, which is the bust, under bust, waist, and next is my basque length. So after our top length, after I'm done outlining that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2. I have 7. Now I'll come down by 1 inch. I'm going to mark. I'll use my ruler, connect, and I'll draw a line connecting to the upper part of my shoulder. Now I'm going to find my chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. And I'll go ahead to mark and measure what I have at that point, which is 1 inch. So this is just to make sure I have a straight line at this point. Now I'll connect from my shoulder down to my chest line. And after I'm done doing this, the next step is just to go ahead to mark my dart intake. So to mark my dart intake, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. So I'm going to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, just like I said, at the bust, under bust, waistline, and I'll go over and mark it at the top length. Now I'm going to use my ruler to draw out a straight line connecting all the marks that I have made. So after I'm done doing that, so I'll go ahead and mark 1 inch dart intake at both sides of my under bust and mark it at my top length. You can go ahead and mark it at other points, but this is just to create a straight dart. A straight dart is actually easier for a beginner to work with. So I'll connect from my under bust down to my top length, and after doing that, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker and ruler to rule it out so that it's going to be very visible. So after I'm done doing this, the next step is to go ahead to find my bust radius. Now your bust radius is the distance between your bust and your under bust. And I'm going to be using this for a guide for this particular tutorial. And I'll go ahead to mark it around my pattern this way. So after drawing out my bust radius, I'm just going to draw a fent circle, which I'll be using as a guide for this particular tutorial. So after that, I'm going to get my French curve, connect from my under bust down to my bust line. And I'm going to repeat the same process at the other part, connect from my under bust down to my bust this way. And this is what I have. Next step is to use my marker to outline my pattern to make it more visible for you to see. So after that, from my chest line, I'm going to come down by ½ inch and I will go in by ½ inch at that point. You can decide to use your chest line as your reference point, or you can decide to also come down. So from this point, I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to connect this way. So this is what I have, and after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline it so that it's going to be very visible. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to place my ruler, extend my line down to that point my bust radius stopped. And at that point, I'll place my ruler and I will draw out a fence line which will serve as a guide. Now I'll be taking in 1 inch dart intake at the upper part. For a plus size, you're going to use either 1.5 or more. Now I'm going to place my French curve, connect this way, and I will turn it over to the other side and connect. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker to outline so that it's going to be very visible for you to see. And after I'm done outlining at this point, I'm going to go ahead and place my French curve and connect. So whatever shape you have here will determine the cup styling you have on top. So now I'm going to go ahead to draw the cup for the other side. So at your bust line, go ahead to mark your bust circumference divided by 4 and come in by 1 inch, and then go down by ½ inch at your chest line and draw out a straight line. So we'll be using that as our new chest line. And now I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to draw out my cup at this point. And I'm going to draw out the cup styling at this point. So after drawing out, this is what I have, and I'm going to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 3.5, and mark ½ inch at that point. So I'll place my French curve touching that point and touching my under bust this way. So this is what I have at this point, and I'm going to go ahead to draw out with my marker to make it more visible. After I'm done drawing out that line, I'm going to go ahead to blend in or blend the upper part this way. So this is my corset pattern and it's almost ready. Now I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and after marking that, I'm going to go ahead to measure the 2 inches that intake, and I'm going to replace it. At the underbust, I'll mark my underbust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and mark my sewing allowance. At the waistline, mark your waistline circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and mark your sewing allowance. So after I'm doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to connect from my waistline down to my underbust, from my underbust down to my bust or my chest line. So after I'm done doing this, my pattern is almost ready. And the next step we're going to take is to go ahead to draw out the line which we have marked to make it more visible. So at the waistline, I'll be going in from my sewing allowance so that my back pattern will meet my front pattern, and I'll go ahead to place my French curve. After I'm done doing that, I'll blend my pattern this way. I want to draw out the waistline of this particular corset, and I'll place my French curve. If you don't have a French curve, you can go ahead and use a freehand sketch. Connect it down this way, and after that, I'm going to open up my pattern and I'll go ahead to outline it so that it will be visible for you to see. And after outlining it, this is what I have. So now we're going to work on the cup part of this corset. So now I'll be using my chest line as the reference point. Go ahead to place my French curve this way, and I'll connect on this side, and on the other side also I'm going to place and connect my pattern. And after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline. So while outlining at the other end, I extended it down by ½ inch a bit so that it won't be meeting the new chest line we have at that point. So after doing this, I'm just going to label this pattern as 1 because we're going to merge it up and it will become one cup, and I will label this as 2 and 3. So with that, we have a 3-part corset, and next we are going to go ahead to cut out this pattern. So if you have any question concerning this video, please don't forget to leave the question at the comment section. And at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. So after that, this is what I have after I'm done cutting out my corset, and the next step is to go ahead to draft the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to mark all my basic measurement just the same way we did in the front, and in this pattern we're not using zipper at the back. So now what am I going to do? Just like we went down from the chest line by ½ inch, I'm going to go ahead to do exactly the same for our back pattern so that the armhole at the front and the armhole at the back is going to align. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead and rule a straight line at that point. So next is to create my dart. I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 3.5. And note, our back pattern stopped at our waistline in order to meet the waistline of the front. So I'll rule a straight line and mark ½ inch. For a plus size, you can go ahead to use 1 inch at this point. And after that, I'm going to go ahead to connect having a straight line. So after marking out a straight line, I'm going to use my marker to outline this so that it's going to be visible for you to see. And after I'm done outlining, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark my body circumference. At the bust line, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, measure, and I will mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and I'll be adding my sewing allowance. So I forgot to add my sewing allowance here. I'll go ahead to mark it. Mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and mark my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to connect from the under bust to the waistline and from the waistline to the bust point. So this is what I have at this point, and I'll go ahead to mark it out. So after I'm done doing this, I'm going to be creating the lacing bar area of this dress, and I will be going in by 1.5 inches at both sides. So this is not a standard. Go ahead to make use of what works for you better. And there I'll rule a straight line. After that, I'll use my marker to outline it to make it more visible. So I'll be coming down by ½ inch at this point, so that after making the dress, it's not going to be popping up at the center. So after that, I'll just go ahead and make a dot to indicate my lacing bar area. And with this, we are done drafting our corsets. We are done drafting our 3-part corset, and now I'm just going to cut this pattern out. And after I'm done cutting it out, the next step I'm going to take after cutting out my pattern is to go ahead to blend the dart. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. If you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any question, please leave it at the comment section. Thanks.